host, and welcome to the Frontlines and the battle against the deep state, the cabal, the Illuminonkeys, and all those that wish to enslave all of humanity for their own selfish reasons. Well, they're on overdrive at this point, right? Because they know they're going to lose this election. The deep state has done everything they could to try and, unseat Trump for the last 3.5 years. Fake stories, fake reports, fake news. All the way across the board, fake. And they know that the amount of enthusiasm that there is for Trump going into this next election is overwhelming, much higher than it was last time, because he actually did what he said he was going to do. So there was a report that has come out in their Revolver.news, and they went over the color revolution and the tactics that are being used by a group of bipartisan, basically Democrats and some never-Trumpers, that got together in June to discuss an election integrity project. Meaning, what is the scenarios that they're going to be able to go through in order to, ensure a good transition, considering that it's going to be really bad if Trump wins. Basically, street fighting will break out. And this is what they're saying. So if Biden wins, it's okay then. Right? No problem. So anyway, that's what we're going to go over today. So on the housekeeping side, this program does move forward, and an amazing amount of people that has come forward with me to support this program by giving donations. I received another donation yesterday of $40. Thank you very much. It's a very strange place to be, where, I have no other way of having support other than what comes from my audience. It's very odd for me, but, I guess one of these things that I learned to appreciate is the power of giving, and I've given a lot in my life. And I a pastor that I worked with out of New Orleans in the Church of Abundant Life, and it was really, his name's Jonas Robertson, and it was always about fighting who can pay the bill for the meal, right, to get the blessings, right, by giving, that kind of thing. So that type of thing has been part of how I went about, and I would help people throughout my life. And I was, really always the one that had been giving. And it is an odd position to be in where I'm asking. The world is a strange place. How this is, the whole world has been shut down. These are the end times, right? Well, the end of whatever there was, and now they're ready to move forward. The problem is that the ones in charge all this time, have ruled from the shadows. They've had their puppeteers out in front, the politicians, and it was the people behind them that have been ruling and basically directing and treating us as a possession for whatever they wanted to do for their own benefit. They would use us. So we're now in this position of now moving forward, where we're going to move past them. We're going to go ahead and step outside of the construct, the new construct they want to put us in, which is not very good, right? It's not a very pleasant outcome. First of all, they need to get rid of the America and its Constitution and its history and wipe it from the minds of everybody. That's part of what all this is about, tearing down the history. You know, I fought it for years when my kids were in school, you know, going against Christopher Columbus, saying, you know, bad things about him. Like, forget, you know, why do you need to focus on what the bad? You can find bad about everyone, right? What is that purpose in going after the founding fathers? What was it about going after the things that made America great? Why everyone tried to get to America from around the world? You know, I thought that such underappreciation from the youth of America about the country they were living in. They really didn't get it because they grew up spoiled, right? Given everything easy, right? Play some games, go play some video games, hang out, you know, behind the screen, and go and play in the imaginary worlds. You know, Hot Pockets will be delivered, or pizza on Fridays. So, you know, they really didn't know. But so when their teachers and professors were all coming from a place of saying, "Oh, America's bad, America's bad, America's bad," you know, that's what they learned. And now we're faced with dealing with the situation where there's rioting everywhere. Now, I'm going to bring up a screen. 1 second. Oh, hi. I just looked at the chat. I see Aunt B is there. Hello, B. At 10 viewers right now. I usually try to talk a little while, and that's funny, pretty funny. Someone in the comments section, I think it was yesterday, was saying, you know, you like to hear yourself talk. You talk too much. Those are trolls, right? Purposeful trolls, you know, paid individuals will come out and put in their 2 cents to basically disparage anything that's going on, right? And so it's so ridiculous, right? First of all, if I don't talk, what am I going to do? Just smile? You know, I'm relaying information. If you don't like hearing me talk, then why are you here, right? So that's why they stick out like a sore thumb. Doesn't make much sense. So I want to show you something. I will find this. Yeah, this one. Okay. So this is from the New York Times. This is a map of where all of the Black Lives Matter protests have been happening. There's also this, you know, Hawaii and Alaska down here on the lower left-hand side. But you could say it's basically across the United States in many locations. First of all, this is not spontaneous. There's no way that this can be a spontaneous, you know, event. And it's not. It's planned. It's a well-oiled machine rolling out to do what is known as a color revolution. So I'm going to go now over to the revolver.news. And this is a new site. I was just introduced to it today. I didn't really know about it. I think I might have stumbled upon it once before, but the logo seems familiar. But I don't really spend much time there. But they've got a lot of good stuff here. So this is the one that we're going over right now. Transition Integrity Project. Is this Soros-linked group plotting a color revolution against President Trump? So I named this episode Color Revolution, Orange Man Bad. Now, there was already an Orange Revolution. Right? So the Orange Revolution took place where? I'm drawing a blank. The Ukraine. So this was, we reported on this, before we get into this, we reported on this a while back, talking about how it got started, and that it was actually um, started by the CIA by creating a sniper team when these people were basically rioting, or I'm sorry, protesting, right? The results of an election, right? That's what the color revolution is all about. It's about tainting the election process to get the other side complaining, right? And then you do something to spark it. In that case, what they did to spark it was they had sharpshooters fire into the Capitol courtyard where there was a bunch of people. Everyone ran scurrying around, right? But that caused everything to get started. This was a Clowns in America event, right? They orchestrated it. It was probably Brennan. Actually, I think that's what we discussed before. It was Brennan's plan, and the people that were involved with actually the hiring of the hit squad are part of this Russian collusion narrative, team, right? It's all the same people, right? But that was how the color revolution got started. Clowns in America, but who paid for it? Soros. Same thing at what is going on here. Okay, so let's go back over here. So now I just want to I was just showing you this is everything. These are the current articles on that they have. Right, so good stuff. Oh, this is interesting. This is the amount of like violations, right, going on. So here's before we get into Zuckerberg, I'm all in on a color revolution. Zuckerberg. What we in other media need to start doing is preparing the American people that there is nothing illegitimate about this election, taking additional days or weeks to make sure all the votes are counted. That's interesting. Yeah, they've got to make sure, right? It's their responsibility. Let's go ahead and play this. This is actually from September 8th, so it's just now.
Other media preparing the American people that there's nothing illegitimate about this election taking additional days or even weeks to make sure that all of the votes are counted. In fact, that might be important to make sure that this is a legitimate and fair election. So we're going to do a bunch of different messaging around that just to make sure that people know that that's normal. So if one of the candidates in any of the races claims victory before there's a consensus result, then we're going to add some informational context to that post directly, saying that there's no consensus result yet. I think that this is important because there is, unfortunately, I think, a heightened risk of civil unrest in the
winning
period, between voting and a result being called or after that. And I just think that we need to be doing everything that we can to reduce the chances of violence or civil unrest in the wake of this election.
If that were to happen, would Facebook be blamed in part?
Well, I can't speak to what other people would do, but I think we're trying to make sure that we do our part to make sure that that none of this is...
He's not answering the question. Wouldn't Facebook be responsible for this violence by basically saying, "Hey, there's no contested. You can't say that the election's been called already. There's more ballots to count." And put up that. So wouldn't they be creating, the situation? So the answer to that is yes, they would, and they would be responsible. Right? But they're telling you what they're going to do.
Is organized on Facebook. We want to make sure that none of that stuff is happening on our services. But the country is very charged right now. So I think regardless of what we do, there's some chance that this happens across the country. I just want to make sure that we do our part to not contribute to it.
Okay, so we can see what they're setting up for. So let's go over to the article right now. Okay, so this is the article. Transition Integrity Project. Is this Soros-linked group plotting a color revolution against President Trump? From 4 days ago. In our previous report on Never Trump State Department official George Kent, Resolver News drew attention to the ominous similarities between the strategies and tactics the United States government employs in so-called color revolutions and the coordinated efforts of government bureaucrats, NGOs, and other media to oust President Trump. This follow-up report will focus specifically on how the contested election scenario we are hearing so much about plays into the color revolution framework. Indeed, sowing doubts about the democratic legitimacy of a target and coupling it with calls for massive, mostly peaceful demonstrations come straight out of the color revolution playbook. And this is precisely the message we've been seeing from those same key players in media, government, the Democratic Party machine, and machine mostly promoting from a shadowy George Soros-linked group known as the Transition to Integrity Project. First, a quick note on color revolutions. A color revolution is, in this context, refers to a specific type of coordinated attack that the United States government has been known to deploy against foreign regimes, particularly in Eastern Europe, deemed to be authoritarian and hostile to American interests. Rather than using a direct military intervention to effect regime change, as in Iraq, color revolution attack is a foreign regime is an attack of a revolution's attack a foreign regime by testing its electoral legitimacy, organizing mass protests and acts of civil disobedience, and leveraging media context to ensure favorable coverage to their agenda in the Western press. So this is going on, right? We can see that this is exactly what's happening. So they're already contesting the electoral legitimacy. Talking about the mail-in ballots, post office boxes being removed, sorting machines being removed, calling up the post office postmaster general to answer questions and berate him and basically try to paint a picture of there being some kind of plot by Trump to stop you from using mail-in votes. And what does Trump come out and do and say, oh, go ahead and use your mail-in vote, but then use that as a verification that your vote actually got used when you go to the polls. So it's a counter to it. So, all right, organize mass protests and acts of civil disobedience. Well, we see that that's what is exactly happening, right? They're promoting this, leveraging media and media context to ensure favorable coverage of their agenda. So yeah, nonstop, right? So exactly what's going on. So let's continue. So it would be disturbing enough to note a coordinated effort to use these exact same strategies and tactics domestically to undermine or overthrow President Trump. The ominous nature of what we see unfolding before us is only truly hits home when one realizes that the people who are specializing in these color revolution regime change operations overseas are literally the very same people attempting to overthrow Trump by using the very same playbook. Given that most famous color revolution was the Orange Revolution in the Ukraine, the Black Lives Matter is being used as a key component of the domestic color revolution against Trump. We can encapsulate our thesis at the Revolver with a simple remark that black is the new orange. Transition Integrity Project. So, what is a Transition Integrity Project and what does it have to do with the color revolution against Trump? Here is how a friendly media outlet represents the Transaction Integrity Project and its agenda. So they say, a bipartisan group bipartisan, meaning that the Republicans are all never-Trumpers. A group of about 80 political operatives and academics has been involved in discussions about what could happen if President Donald Trump were to lose the November election and then contest the results, potentially refusing to leave the White House. The Boston Globe first reported on Sunday that the group of Democrats and Republicans, all of whom oppose the president, convened in an online meeting to hash out scenarios as part of what is called the Transition Integrity Project in June. Well, that's what they say it is. Okay. Of course, what they do not say about this ostensibly bipartisan group is that its founder, Rosa Brooks, is a longtime close associate of George Soros and his Open Society Foundation. She served both as a special counsel to President George Soros, to the president at George Soros Open Society Foundation, and as a board member of the Open Society Foundation. So basically, in 2006 and 2007, Brooks was a special counsel to the president of the Open Society Institute in New York. Brooks also served as a consultant for Human Rights Watch. She currently serves on the advisory board of the Open Society Foundation U.S. programs and the advisory board of the National Security Action and the board of Harper's Magazine Foundation. So media outlets such as the National Pulse have drawn attention to Rosa Brooks' Soros connections, as well as some interesting connections to Democrat presidential candidate Joe Biden. It is certainly suspicious that the head of the group claiming to be bipartisan, which runs war games that reinforce the dangerous new talking points that President Trump won't concede the election, just happens to be linked to George Soros and Joe Biden. To top it all off, Never Trump Russiagate fanatic Bill Kristol and David Frum participated in this study as well. In fact, the entire project appears to be coordinated between established Democrats and anti-Trump Republicans. Shockingly, when the anti-Trump Republicans pretended to be him in a simulation, they had to do a bunch of illegal and unconstitutional acts. Wow, what an incredibly revealing simulation. On the other hand, it is tempting to look at this as just another case of Democrat operatives falsely representing themselves as bipartisan and getting away with a due to the compliant media. There is, of course, some truth to this, but the deeper sense is that the interpretation misses the plot completely. The domestic color revolution framework hints that something far more dangerous and sinister. George Soros and his Open Society Foundation have played key roles in the color revolutions in Eastern Europe, including the famous Orange Revolution and the Euromaidan Revolution in the Ukraine, in which mass demonstrations and acts of civil disobedience were organized in order to overthrow the target regime helmed by Russian-aligned Yankonovich. Trouble with those names. Sorry about that. All right, next, let's see. Setting aside the question of whether the overthrow of Yanukovych was justified or in American interest, what is crucial here is the similarity, not only the method, but even the vocabulary. Mass demonstrations are part of the color revolution playbook, especially when they can incite crackdowns that can be used as further pretext to escalate demonstrations against the target regime. Notice the vocabulary of George Soros' Open Society Foundation used to describe the Euromaidan protest. Okay, in late 2013, Ukrainians took to the streets in a peaceful protest. After then President Viktor Yanukovych chose not to sign an agreement that would have integrated the country more closely with the European Union. The International Resistance Foundation, part of the Open Society family of foundations, has supported civil society in Ukraine since 1990. For 25 years, the International Resistance Foundation has worked with civil society organizations defending human rights and justice, tackling corruption, supporting Ukraine minorities, including Tatars and Roma, pursuing health and education reform, and helping to facilitate Ukrainian-European integration. That's interesting. The Tatars. So check into that. Interesting that he is supporting that. So anyway, to continue, the International Resistance Foundation played an important role supporting civil society during the Euromaidan protests. The foundation ensured that legal aid was made available through the crisis to civil activities, protesters, and journalists, supplied victims of violence with medical care, enables civil society solidarity and organization, supporting channels like Hermansky TV and independent live reporting about events on the Maidan, and documented cases of torture, beatings, and police courts abuse. Okay, so this description of the Euro-Ukrainian color revolution by Brookings Institute scholar Stephen Perfer is worth noting. So, in February 21st marks the 6th anniversary of the end of the Ukraine's Maidan Revolution. 3 months of largely peaceful protests concluded in a spasm of deadly violence. President Viktor Yanukovych fled Kiev and later the Ukraine, prompting the Rada, Ukraine's parliament, to appoint acting leaders pending early elections. So basically, it started off peaceful and then a lot of violence and got him to leave. So it seems like that's the playbook they want to go by, right, to get Trump out. So prior to his posting at Brookings, Steve Pfeiffer was, of course, ambassador of Ukraine under President Obama, and of course, he was actively involved in promoting the failed Ukraine-themed impeachment against President Trump. It is important to look at the context of what is happening between the U.S. and Ukraine on July 25th, Pfeiffer told McFaul. For one thing, Trump had put nearly $400 million in military aid for Ukraine on hold before the call took place. In addition, the two countries were in the midst of planning meetings between the two leaders in the Oval Office at that time. Those are big things for Zelensky, particularly the beginning of his term in office. He said, Pfeiffer, who is a William J. Perry Fellow at the Center of International Security and Cooperation. If he can show that he delivered on assistance, then also on a photo op with American president, it really looks good at home. And so, and it's also a good message to send Russians. I've got a relationship with the Americans. Okay. So Pfeiffer's interlocutor here. McFaul happens to have been a senior ambassador to Russia under Obama during the period of Maidan's protests. McFaul is yet another color revolution specialist who played an active role in promoting the impeachment of President Trump. In fact, after Revolver's story exposing the State Department official George Kent, McFaul took a Twitter and denounced the term color revolution in favor of a more palatable Democrat breakthrough. So here is Michael McFaul. Here's his tweet. Autocrats have demonized the phrase color revolutions, and revolutionary generally has a negative connotation for many. Instead, I use the term democratic breakthroughs. So McFaul's color revolution bona fides are so substantially, he literally wrote the book on it. He is one of the two editors of a series of essays, Revolution in Orange, about the orange color revolution in Ukraine. So this is from his book, I guess. So the democratic series of protests and political events that unfold in the Ukraine in the fall of 2004, the Orange Revolution, were simultaneously both the Ukraine history and history of democratization. Pro-Western presidential candidate Viktor Yushchenko was poisoned with dioxin, and an industrial pollutant left him weakened and horribly disfigured. When this assassination attempt failed, the Kremlin backed the ruling party resorted to voter intimidation and mass electoral fraud to win the runoff election. Supporters of Yushchenko responded with a series of strikes, sit-ins, and marches through the Ukraine. Thanks in large part to this peaceful revolution, the election results were annulled. Does this plot sound familiar? Yes, it sounds exactly the same. What's going on now? Of course, the Color Revolution book received nice blurb, but nothing other than George Soros himself. So George Soros says, keen observers of the recent transition, as Lud and his co-authors write with authority about the changes and opportunities Ukraine faces today. Drawing on broad experience in the regime, they examine the situation through comparative lens. This book should be read carefully and studied by the policymakers alike. George Soros, Chairman, Open Society Institute. We can start to get a sense that a curiously high percentage of key Trump opposition figures, especially those involved with impeachment of the president, have had some kind of professional role overseeing color revolutions in Eastern Europe. The people most vigorously and effectively targeting Trump today are regime change professionals of the color revolution variety, whose preferred playbook involves a combination of attacking the legitimacy and electoral integration of their target, mobilizing mass demonstrations of mostly peaceful protesters, and using any efforts to crack down on said protesters as further escalating the offensive act against the target regime. So here's a passage from the key book. So before we get into that, so just looking at this, so if Trump was to crack down, meaning send in the troops into where all you saw the map with all these Black Lives Matter protests going on, and the troops were deployed. Call up the National Guard, call up the military. He has the authority because of the emergency situation of COVID. He can actually use the Army, the Navy, the Marines to go in and do it. The Space Force. And if he was to do that, he would look like a dictator. Keeping in mind, all these same powers were meant for Hillary, and she would be doing that, right? But Hillary would have the media on her side saying it was justified and all that. But Trump has the opposite, right? So they want to remove him. So they would want to say that he's being a dictator, that he is basically cracking down on the poor people. You know, he has to go. But Trump didn't do that. In fact, he sits back and he says, well, if you need my help, your cities are burning. I'm here to help you when you need it, right? So that's, how he's defeating them. He knows their playbook. After all, we're reading it. We're reading the playbook. Here's some pages of it. So here's a passage from the key book of Color Revolution. It's literally called The Playbook. The reader may find some highlighted passages relevant to the domestic situation unfolding before our eyes. Well, let's go down to there. So here's the summary. So I'm just going to read some form networks, right? Create a unified Democrat opposition where possible, or consider using a referenda as an alternative. Next, increasing election monitoring capacity, and be prepared to use electoral abuse evidence as a basis for reform advocacy. continuing down, so engage new voters by presenting a vision of for the future. All right, remember that the message matters, and then forcefully contest each individual liberal act of non-democratic actors. So opposition leaders may also choose to pursue more extreme institutional measures available to them: impeach process, votes of no confidence, and recall agenda, and or deploy extra institutional tools, i.e. protest strikes and boycotts. And here's another passage, okay. It's good. I'm just going to read the highlighted parts. But while independent election monitors are most effective, they can more easily deflect claims of biased opposition parties. Should also work to have their own trained election monitors where possible. Moreover, once armed with evidence of electoral abuses, the opposition should work with external allies to apply pressure to the regime and reform electoral practices. Okay, so this is a pretty important part. So they're saying here, right, to use the evidence. So what's the evidence? Whoa, he got rid of the mailboxes. Oh, he took out the sorting machines from the post office. Oh, the post office didn't get the money they needed. Right? Here's evidence, right? You know, Trump saying, to vote twice, right? The more evidence. But of course, Trump didn't do that. Trump didn't remove mailboxes. They were already scheduled to go, right? The sorting machines were scheduled to go. And the new postmaster general, was just, rolling through and tidying up, and they wanted to make a scene about it, right? Because they had this plan of dumping 80 million ballots. So, okay, so what else? So, should the opposition with work, external allies should apply pressure to the regime. So what external allies? The United Nations, Blue Helmet troops with Chinese coming in and helping. You can bet that that's what's forming. All right, we'll continue here. The author of this book, conveniently titled The Democracy Playbook, just happens to have also participated in the Transition Integrity Project. Now that we are armed with the color revolution framework and specific role of the electoral legitimacy plays in that model, we are in a strong position to evaluate the true agenda behind the Transition Integrity Project war game scenario, suggesting that Trump won't concede the election. The title of Rosa Brooks' Washington Post piece is suggestive and prompting us to wonder whether it is a prediction or a threat. What's the worst that could happen? The election will likely spark violence and a constitutional crisis. So he said, a landslide for Joe Biden resulting in a relatively orderly transfer of power. Every other scenario we looked at involves street-level violence and political crisis. The translation of this is vote for Biden or else. So yeah, this is a threat, right? So okay. The overwhelming support of the Electoral College will go to Trump. It just, there's so much enthusiasm. So many people are going to go to the polls. It's going to be overwhelming victory. Why would he concede? So, Biden is obviously not going to concede because they're telling us he's not going to concede. So we can plan that this is what's going to happen. All right, so let's move on. So soon, Attorney General William P. Barr opens an investigation into unsubstantiated allegations of massive vote-by-mail fraud has been tied to Democrat officials, Antifa. The Michigan and Wisconsin, where Biden had won the official vote, and the Democratic governors have certified states of pro-Biden electors. The Trump campaign persuades Republican-controlled legislators to send vital pro-Trump slates to Congress for the Electoral College vote. So the translation Despite severe problems with mail-in voting, any effort by the Justice Department to ensure integrity of mass mailing system will be interpreted as interpreted in advance as part of an authoritarian coup on the part of Trump. In other words, if Trump takes any reasonable measures to prevent color revolution coup against him, he will automatically be acting as an authoritarian manner, justifying said color revolution against him. Funny how that all works, isn't it? Yeah. I'm laughing. No, not. All right, next. In every exercise, both teams sought to mobilize their supporters to make the streets Team Biden repeat call for peaceful protests, while Team Trump encouraged provocateurs to incite violence and use the resulting chaos to justify sending federalized guard units to active duty military personnel into American cities to restore order. Translation: no matter how violent these peaceful protests become, any effort by Trump to establish authority will be used to confirm the predetermined conclusion that he is an authoritarian, and the extraordinary measures must be taken to remove him from office. Which they think the military is going to work to do that, right? They're relying on their deep state actors in the military to make that happen. All right, next. Social media platforms can commit to protecting the democratic process by rapidly removing or correcting false statements by spread of foreign and domestic disinformation campaigns, by ensuring that their platforms aren't used to incite or plan violence. So we've already seen that's what Zuckerberg just said. We brought that up, right? They're going to basically make sure to put notes on these kind of statements saying that they're not verified by fact-checked or whatever. So translation: social media must fully censor leading up to the election. Facebook is already doing its part, for instance, by aggressively censoring any mentioning of the Kyle Rittenhouse that suggests that he acted in self-defense. He did. Next. So when people unite to demand democracy and the rule of law, even repressive regimes can be stopped in their tracks. So Trump is the repressive regime, and therefore extraordinary measures usually reserved for repressive regimes overseas, namely color revolutions, are justified to prevent him from taking office. Note, this settlement was echoed explicitly in the same roundtable discussion on the election done by the New York Times with a little over a week ago. One of the contributors, Jamel Bowie, spelled it out quite explicitly. He said, I think the Democrat Party and its affiliated institution organizations need to be prepping basically for the defense of ballot counting sort of nationwide effort to stop that tampering. I think there needs to be plans for protest demonstrations. This is going to sound very hyperbolic, but I think we have to think of the task of getting Trump out as less of a traditional democratic transition and more of something akin to pushing an authoritarian regime out. So they're talking about force, right? They're talking about forcing him out, even if he wins, right? And they will contest the election for years to come, and Pelosi will get into the spot if there is no one called for the election. So that is the ultimate plan here, right? Confuse the election. Okay. One does not vote out an authoritarian regime. They are not, or they're not authoritarian. Dictators are only overthrown, and Bowie's statement is an explicit call to do exactly that. The actually peaceful process of voting must be supplanted with the mostly peaceful protests if the result isn't correct, which leads us to the next passage of Rosa's book. Mass mobilization is no guarantee that the democracy will survive. But things go badly, as our exercise suggests they might sustain a nonviolent protest movement may be America's best and final hope. And keep in mind, when they say our democracy, right, they're really talking about their corporatocracy, their system, the deep state system. They're not talking about the republic. Okay, translation. I guess I just did a translation, but anyway. Just in case Biden isn't able to win fair and square, they have introduced a mail-in voting system that will dramatically increase the likelihood of some contested election scenario. If that occurs, the outcome of the election will no longer be the realm of a democratic choice, where perhaps the forces against Trump have a disadvantage. Instead, the election becomes an issue of sustained mass mobilization, of demonstrations, capitalizing on every opportunity for escalation of a full court press by the media, demonizing every effort by Trump to restore the order as authoritarian in the transmission of an electoral process into court battles which disadvantage Trump. There is, of course, one scenario, a very dark one, that remains unexplored. If the color revolution against Trump frames him as an authoritarian unwilling to leave office, and only alternative is to remove him by force, both Al Gore and Joe Biden have already taken extreme, irresponsible, and dangerous step of floating military role in the removing of Trump should the color revolution not turn out the way they plan. So again, they're calling on the military. If Trump lost the election but refused to accept the results, Gore said he believes the military would intervene. He noted that under the parameters of the Constitution, Trump's last day in office is January 20th, 2021. So they are setting up things in such a way that almost ensures that a clear winner will not exist on Election Day, and framing any refusal of President Trump to concede on the grounds for military removal. This final stage of the color revolution is something that Rosa Brooks of the Transaction Integrity Project has entertained for quite some time. The following excerpt is from a piece of Rosa Brooks wrote shortly after the 2016 election, suggesting a fourth way to remove Trump from the office before 2020. The fourth possibility is one that until recently I would have said is unthinkable in the United States of America: a military coup, or at least the refusal of the military leaders to obey the certain orders. Okay, so we continue. And this is how the color revolution operation against Trump and extension against all his supporters evidently concludes with the possibility of a military coup. So basically they're saying no matter it's almost inevitable that the military will have to step in. So after a 2016, a critical mass of ruling class factions in the national security apparatus, state bureaucracies, big tech, and media decided that they would never allow the American people to meddle in their own election again. And as a result of this contempt for the will of the people, our country is closer to existential crisis than it had been in any period since the Civil War. In an age of mandated masks, there is one metamorphic mask that is slipping. That the mask of a pretty illusion of a covered up and true nature of the American power structure with phrases like liberal democracy. As the mask slips away, we confront both the face and the fist of evil. We first must do everything in our power to prevent and complete transformation of this country into the brutal, scowlessness, tyrannies of the world of the overlords imagine for us in our posterity. Okay, so that's it. So this is really telling of what is to come, right? This is a war. It truly is a war. They're not going to go quietly. They're making their plans. Their plans are in front of us. They always conduct all these plans in front of us. They say what they're going to do. This should be no surprise. You know, but this also makes it easy to know what their playbook is. And so Trump knows what they're planning to do. He's known all this time. He's known since he's got into the office what their plans were for this time. He knew that they were going to impeach him and when it was going to take place. This was all laid out in the number 17 posts. You know, the very first posts talk about arresting Hillary. It goes into Panetta being arrested on the 4th of November. If you consider that this is actually what will occur, that the arrest will happen on the 4th of November, that they are going to basically start all of this bringing out of all their dirty laundry as the trump card against all of this garbage, I'd say you'd be right. I think that that's what Trump has laid out here. They've known from the very beginning. This is all of the number 17 posts. All do this this future proofs past scenario, interwoven proofs of 1 year deltas, 2 year deltas, 3 year deltas, coming down and saying this is what's going to happen. November 3rd, November 4th, arrest. Maybe Hillary is before that. Because I don't think there's a date for her, but maybe there is. I'll have to go back and look. Since I'm bringing it up, I'll go look. I might as well see if there's any new posts there as well. But we can see that that there has to be some counter to this. And so what are people going to be concerned with? The fake election brouhaha that they're talking about when the majority of everyone went to the polls and voted? Right? Everyone's going to go vote. So as much as possible, they're going to run. They're going to run to the polls, and they're going to vote for Trump. It's going to be so overwhelming. Okay, so I've got the first one here. I'm going to share my screen with you again so you can take a look. So again, we'll go over this. Number 1, Hillary Clinton extradition. So Hillary Clinton will be arrested between 7:45 a.m. and 8:30 Eastern Standard Time on Monday, the morning of October 30th. Now that says 2017. Was she already arrested? Or is this something that's actually going to happen this October 30th? HRC extradition already in motion, effective yesterday, with several countries in case of cross-border run. Passport approved will be flagged effectively October 30th at 12:01 a.m. Expect massive riots organized in defense of others fleeing, right, and others fleeing the U.S. to occur. The M's will conduct the operation while so M's, what is that? The marshals will conduct the operation while the National Guard is activated. Proof check: locate a National Guard member and ask if activated for duty on 10:30 across most major cities. So, is this what's coming? I think so. If you look at the next one, it goes, Mockingbird, HRC detained, not arrested yet. Where is Huma? Right, they're on the run. Right, this has nothing to do with Russia. Does the POTUS surround himself with generals? What is military intelligence? Now let me ask you: was POTUS actually surrounded with generals at that time, or is it now that he's surrounded by generals? Interesting, right? Why go around the three-letter agencies? What Supreme Court case will allow the use of military intervention, military intelligence versus congressionally assembled and approved agencies. Now, this also, it says military intelligence. But anyway, so who has ultimate authority over branches of military, with or without approval conditions, unless 90 plus in wartime conditions? What is that? Unless 90 plus in wartime conditions? We're in wartime conditions. So how did they know that we'd be in wartime conditions? The state of emergency, right? The Defense Production Act, the Stafford Act. All of these things are putting power in his hands. What is the military code? Where is AW? Anthony Weiner being held. Why? POTUS will not go on TV to address the nation. POTUS must isolate himself to prevent negative optics. So, did POTUS not say, "You may not see me for a while"? Right? Didn't he say that just recently? So I think that these are the what's coming right now. POTUS knew removing criminal rogue elements as a first step was essential to free and pass legislation. So all of this is leading up to this election, so that this is the first step. The first step is draining the swamp. Isn't that what Trump said he's going to do? He's draining the swamp. He's been getting all of his cleaning materials together so he can scrub the tub. He's been getting a way to pulling the plug on the stopper on the truck to start it draining. He's been preparing. This is all setting this up to actually execute now. Who has access to everything classified? Who do you believe HRC, Soros, Obama, etc. have more power than Trump? That's fantasy. Whoever controls the office of the president controls this great land. They never believed for a moment that Democratic Republicans would lose control. This is not a R versus D battle. Why did Soros donate his money recently? Why would he place all his funds in RC? What is that? Rachel? No, that's not it. Why did he put all his funds in RC? I don't know what that is. Mockingbird 10/30/17. So maybe this just means the 17th letter. You sign it. God bless fellow patriots. All right. Again, this goes in the Iranian one. So okay, we'll stop there. But you got the point, right? This is all about this election. Everything leading up to this point. What is the ultimate trump card? Right? It was to arrest these people and bring everybody's awareness up about the pedivores, the satanic rituals, the abuse, the human trafficking, how widespread it is. That being said, let me talk about how this is actually showing up as how widespread and how it's being brought down on people that are still doing it. We have citizens taking action, right, to actually change what has been going on here. So, yeah, here it is. So this is from a channel. Now, so he doesn't even have it credited, but it's Drew Berquist. These online predators were caught on camera making them famous. Let's make them famous. So let's make these guys famous. Oh, that is the spot. He's talking about it.
A little boy. The man on the phone is not actually 15, despite what he thought you were here to do. You got something to say? I'm sorry, you're here to meet a 15-year-old boy. You are? Yeah, your name's Hilliard, right? You're a security guard, right? 55, 56 years old. You're missing all those teeth that you were talking about. You got those dentures in. You were telling the little boy, it's a nice car, dude. Who are you here to meet?
Huh?
Who are you here to meet?
I have no idea.
15-year-old girl?
No.
Named Steph?
Yes.
Yes. How many times tell you she was 15? Hey, look, I'm not a cop. I'm just a concerned citizen.
Yeah,
I'm just filming for your safety and my safety. I have all your chat logs.
that's cool.
You've been talking to me.
I wasn't gonna
The entire time.
do anything. I was just actually getting ready to tell you that thank you for doing what you did.
Jake? Hey, my name's Danny. I run an organization called ACE. I run an organization called ACE. I expose men
ACE.
who try to meet with children online. Okay, so you think 15-year-olds are hot? You're attracted to 15-year-olds? Yes? Well, that's the first admission I've got off right at the bat. What am I gonna do? IFB G57, Jake, Justin, is attracted to 15-year-old girls, here to pick up a little girl at midnight at a gas station to take her for a drive. You should be. That's disgusting. You got daughters close to her age, twin daughters. You don't seem like you're sorry because you got caught. I can tell everybody what you're here to do if you want me to. You're all right? Because why are you here? You want to tell me why you're here then? You were going to meet a 15-year-old girl. Okay, so you weren't saying that you were catching feelings for her. You asked her to text a female that would be unsuspecting of her age and lie that she's 18 years old. No. I read the text messages. You said you're gonna have to lie to her. Don't tell her you're 15. Tell her you're 18. You're a monster. Yeah, dude. I read every single text message before you showed up. I've been chasing you all around town. Your husband got busted, 6 years ago trying to do this? And now he sent you over here to pick her up so he wouldn't get in trouble? You don't think now you just roped your entire family into this? What do you mean, who is she? You've been talking to her. You probably know who she is more than I do, right? You don't? So you drove an hour and a half to pick somebody up who you don't know, who you talked to on the phone, who you've been texting. But you didn't want any trouble, but you're here to meet a kid. You're here to meet somebody's little girl. You were picking her up for the weekend. You asked her to pack her clothes. That little girl's sitting over there with her clothes packed right now. Who am I? I'm Danny. I run an organization called ACE. I expose online child predators. On the phone, you said whatever happens, happens. You know, I ain't trying to get in trouble. You asked her if you were going to go to jail. You told her you didn't want the cops here.
I told her I did not want.
That's disgusting, but you're an adult.
I am an adult.
Do you realize that it's your responsibility to be the adult in this situation? But you're here to meet a child.
But I just want to meet her and tell her all this.
Why don't you tell her on the phone? Why are you even talking to her if she's a kid? If she's in high school?
I was just trying to save her because how do I know she's not doing
You were
this?
trying to save her.
I was going to tell her that this is not very smart.
So you're protecting children.
Yes.
You're doing what I do?
Yes.
Okay, so you talk to minors online and get them to... Hey, Matt.
Hello.
Hey, I'm Danny.
How you going?
With 417 Predator Hunters. You know why I'm here to meet you today?
Mhm.
What are you doing here?
I am here for breakfast.
Okay, you're here to meet a 15-year-old girl for breakfast. Look, I got all the chat logs from the second you were talking to her up until now. Hey, I'm Danny with 417 Predator Hunters. You know why I'm here to talk to you today?
417 Predator Hunters. All right. So, yeah, sorry that I didn't really intend on bringing that up right now. I just watched it earlier and I said, but it kind of fit because, you know, this is what people are now doing. They're chasing these people down. Right. This is like a citizen's arrest, sort of, right? But it's a citizen protest arrest, a citizen focus on these bad guys and letting them know, right? And they're entrapping these people to show that this is what they're doing, right? And they all look busted, right? And they don't know what to do because they know that they were doing something wrong at that time. But anyway, this is how the level has of the mentality of the people has been leveled up to where people can now accept that this is going on, right? If you just arrest, you know, the first day of Trump's presidency, even though he arrested 3,600 pedophiles in the first 3 months of his administration, that didn't just happen, right? That doesn't just happen, right? It didn't happen within 3 months. He didn't get in the first day in office and said, okay, start working on this and see what you can do. 3 months? No. They knew what they were doing when they got in there in the beginning. Trump's team knew exactly what to do. This has been the play. Go after this full force from the very beginning, and they've done it. Right? And they brought up this to a level. So Jeffrey Epstein and Giselle Maxwell, Weinstein. Now we're talking about Cappy and Tom Hanks and Spielberg and so on and so on and so on, and all of Hollywood and Adrenochrome and all of it. People are aware. At least they heard about it, right? They may not understand it or even want to believe it, but now there's enough that when they start these arrests, that's what people will be focused on. You think they're going to be worried about the mail-in ballots and all this bogus stuff that are going on? No. These people are going to be, the peaceful protests with some violence is not going to be against Trump and the election results. It's going to be against them, including the media. That's what is going to be happening. That's what is going to unfold here. We can see, that this needs to happen, right? It's not going to be pleasant. It's not. There's so much other stuff other than this is going to be happening at the same time. We're going to see, states try to secede from the union, right? We're going to see, here's something else. So much going on. So much going on. California has a recall effort going on right now. And OAN is doing a report on this.
From Californians, county officials are refusing to cooperate with the recall effort against Governor Gavin Newsom. Here's One America's Pearson Sharp.
California residents are rallying behind efforts to recall Governor Gavin Newsom, but organizers say corrupt officials could be holding them back. California residents who say they've had enough of their governor's radical left-wing policies are joining in support for an effort to remove Newsom from office. But according to Aaron Cruz, CEO of Rand Action Fund and the lead proponent for recalling Gavin Newsom, county registrars are refusing to submit the signatures they've received. She says that's a problem because the people of California are fed up with Gavin Newsom.
They're afraid to lose their jobs. They're afraid to leave the state. They don't want to leave the state. They are supportive. This is their state, this is their fight, and they're taking ownership. And that's what's really important about this. The people are angry.
Normally,
so Gavin Newsom, should be recalled, right? The people don't. The people want to open up their businesses. The other scandal just breaking. The government workers can use the gyms in the state in the government buildings. They're open, but in the private sector where people can open their own gyms and those businesses are not allowed to open. What's the difference? What is the difference? They want to keep the economy shut down. That's the only difference. And the government people take money from the people. They don't have to earn it, right? They just take it from the people. And so they want to take everything from the people. This ultimate agenda, this progressive agenda to create a progressive new type of government, which is just a form of communism mixed in with big tech. That's all it is. Nobody owns anything. No one owns businesses. No one owns property. You have to do what the government tells you to do. And you want to basically change that, they stop you. They don't allow you. I've dealt with it in the city of Los Angeles. I've dealt with it in California. I saw how they don't want to go by the law. Doesn't matter how much you go and you go to the city council meetings. Doesn't matter. These people all have to be thrown out. All of them. All of the bureaucracies have to be dismantled, removed. They don't need to be there. All they do is create their own busy work to justify their existence. For the most part. Okay. I think that we're good for now. We're an hour and 15 minutes in. Let me just see if there's any questions in the chat room. Thank you all for participating with this, because I think this is one of the important things that we have to watch out for. That we know that this is coming. Be ready for the turmoil. Okay, so 19 viewers. Hello, everybody. All right. So Sam, he says, I just saw today Facebook is paying people not to watch Facebook. Yeah, that's the other thing. I saw that too. So Facebook is not doesn't want certain people to watch Facebook until after the election. They will pay you like $100 if you just log out of Facebook and don't look at what's going on. That's a new tactic, but they're only offering it to certain people. Can you bet they're trying to get people so that they don't get swayed by what other people are saying, right? They say, "Oh, just tune out for a while. We'll give you some money." I wonder if they actually would do it and then not pay people afterwards. Or would say, "Oh, you violated. We know that you logged in unintentionally on another device, and you get off, but it's too late. You don't get the money." Anyway, what else? Kate, Christy is saying, just chiming in. Any more word on the frozen meat and unpasteurized dairy? Where, when, how bad? Okay, so all I have on that is that one video that I showed, right? The original video was removed. The video, if you want to get a hold of it, it's in the chat group, wwg1wga.love. The link is down below in the description. You'll have to join Telegram. I urge you to be on Telegram. I think it's the fantastic platform for sharing all of this stuff, even videos. You can post up to 2 gigabyte videos now, which is amazing. You could fit like 6-7 hours of video in that much. So, but I don't know more. I have told my family, be sure to overcook everything from now on. That this is, it seems to be that they're setting it up to make sure that hydroxy number 17-quin was used, if used for this bacteria, would actually end up harming you. So it's another diabolical, way that they're going about things. Okay, what else? Yes. Yes, UN Agenda 21 is now Agenda 2020 and Agenda 2030. All right, Sammy. So, how great to hear California's standing and not corrupt governor. Yeah. I think that I think it's going to be successful. I think they're going to get rid of Gavin. I think the rest of this stuff is going to be coming down. We have to be ready to with information. We have to be vocal. We have to be, and we have to not get into the fight with weapons, and that even though that there's going to be people that are going to die. It's going to happen. People are going to be. It's already happened. Antifa is going to shoot people, trying to get you. Yeah, you need to do self-defense. Right, but the media is going to downplay that and everything. But if it was everyone got armed and started going down the streets chasing these people, that would be a problem, right? Let's see what happens after this election, how bad it's going to get. But be prepared. Have your own electricity generation available to you. Have 90 days of food. 90 days of food. So keep in mind, if you don't have electricity, you don't have refrigeration. So anything in your refrigerator won't be usable after a day, 2 days, 3 days, so on. So just be aware. All right, what else? How to contact someone about the biofeedback machine. the quantum healing machine. There is an email address. I believe it's on the lifeforce.global website. So you just go there and you'll find it. I believe it's healthy at lifeforce.global. But please look it up. I should probably get it and have it available so when people ask, but it is on the lifeforce.global. Please also be aware there is going to be there's an effort to organize to go on the 11th of this month to all the state capitals with the assemblies. Just to go there as a meet and greet for everyone to start organizing. It's a great place to start, especially at this time, just before the elections. Show that the people are assembling, and that is the lawful body of government. It's not the right to protest. Assembly does not mean protest. Protest means protest. Assembly is to get together and create a governing body to tell the government that you're not following the Constitution, you're out of here. That's what it's for. It's the people's counter to the bureaucracy. Okay, I think that covers everything. Again, your donations are much appreciated. If it comes in every day, a little at a time, everything will just keep going real smoothly. And I do appreciate everything. I do hope that the other project I'm working on I have someone coming in with a big sum that's going to help move things along, and that's supposed to be coming up this month. So until then, though, I do need your help. So do whatever you can. And if you need to use Western Union or MoneyGram, please contact me by email. My email is down below. Or Telegram. Again, great platform. I'm thinking it's probably the best place to post all of these videos too. Just saying. Okay, then until tomorrow, thank you again. Have a wonderful day.